All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Crown Council live stream. I am Stuart Anderson. It is June 11th. We're grateful that you're with us today. We have two major guests that you are going to be able to listen to watch, and to learn from. Our first is about a 35-minute segment with Cassie Talon. You might have remembered Cassie. She did part one with us. This is part two, and we're going to do a part three all about patient service, all about the standard of care that we're providing, all about the relationships that we are building with our customers and our patients. This 35-minute segment is just chock full of tips, tricks, and principles that you can use to create that incredible relationship based experience for patients. So enjoy. I'm going to turn the time over to Cassie. She is going to present slide deck and all the incredible things that your team can start doing or continue to do to provide great and incredible customer care. So take it away, Cassie. All right, hey everybody, welcome to part two, Cassie Talon. Cassie, we didn't tell them there was going to be a part two, but there's even going to be a part three. Have we decided on a part four? Are we going to do part four?
There is a part four. There's
Oh,
four in the
yes.
series. Yeah, let's
Okay,
go.
cool. So, I'm here with Cassie. We are going to be talking today, as you can see on the slide, Gold in the Call. We had our first, if you haven't watched our first webinar together, our first, uh, we spent an hour almost, Cassie. It was so good talking about the gold standard, building a culture of success in your practice on how you treat each other, how you treat your patients. And we are going to expand on that today, take it to part two. So we're grateful to be with you. Grateful for you, Cassie. Thankful for everything that you've prepared for us. You're sharing your screen. Do you want to just take it away?
Yeah, I'll take it away from here. And I'll start by saying, this is kind of a near and dear to me session because a lot of what I'm doing today is to eliminate what's happening where there's so much automation and so much removal of the personal touch that we are living in a space where it is needed more than ever. And
Mm,
so you heard in that first session where we talked about just what it means to refine the way we approach our patients. And today is a little bit more of that. So,
yes.
it's back to the Crown standard. And really, I just think about how in creating this for you all, this was such a valuable piece of engagement. But, the standard starts with us. It means that we're shifting from that gatekeeper to a guide in the patient journey and experience. I love even having the team members say, I am here as your partner in care so that the patient hears that we're partnering with them. We're a patient advocate. We're not just another hired employee. And so today is really about the phone call in greater depth. And it's the first patient room you walk into every day. And it means that the patient is engaging with us front and center. And we have about 10 seconds, by the way, Stu, before they determine what they think about us. And that's
Nice.
crazy, but it's actually true even when you meet people, right? I mean, I'm just going to say it. If it's a lousy handshake or you're a little
Mhm.
disheveled walking into the room, there is something to take note in that. And the same is true when they are calling a dental office. And so we're going to talk about, closing with confidence and really getting the right information. So the phone is the front door to our clinics. And really, it is the patient experience that holds the greatest significance and can turn things from good to bad in a matter of seconds. Every call is revenue or relationship. And really, the Crown Standard does not pause for the phone. So it's greeting and presence and empathy and ownership of over all of these elements. And really, long before the patient ever walks into the lobby, it's about deciding how you will show up. And I will pause right here and say that as I have evaluated clinics, a lot has been added to that first phone call. And I have had to actually get people to stop and understand that the speed of which you gather information does not make someone choose your practice any
Mm,
different. Like,
mhm.
so the doctor and the team has decided we need you to gather 17 points before it gets on the schedule. And the quicker you do it to care for the next patient, that is the testament of a good call. And my first statement is if you are picking up the phone thinking about your checklist, you have missed the entire point of the patient
Ooh, I
relationship.
love that. I love that.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. So in fact, just a side note, even when a patient walks in the door, one of the first things I tell the team to do is to actually stand up and welcome the patient and shake their hand and then sit back down to the computer. So a conscious change that they are going to engage differently. And really that's what we're all about here today. So this hour is about kind of resetting the mindset, installing some framework, and, master the saves. Even when somebody calls, doctors will tell me they've told their team, if anyone calls for the fees, just shut them down. And I'm like, well, yes and no, because somebody across the street that's your competitor is probably giving away some of the fee information, maybe not all of it, but we don't have to navigate it as an all or none conversation. It can be in the way we present ourselves to the patient. And in fact, one of the things I found recently is that a lot of the out of network opportunities that are presenting themselves with patients are paying very similar to what in network does. And we miss that right now. And we're just shutting it down and saying, no, we're not in network with Delta Dental. Well, no, we're not, but we also provide superior service to anyone that is in our radius that does. And let me tell you a little bit about how incredible our office is. So you're going to hear me talk about that language, and then finding the gold in the call. This is my favorite thing to train teams on. I hope that after you listen to this, teams go back and create their own card at the desk to pause and remember this. And then we'll talk about how that moves the metrics. So it's an exciting conversation to have. And honestly, Stu, I couldn't wait to meet back up with you to talk about all.
Yes.
So here we go. So the cost of the average call, this one's pretty remarkable, but first year value of one new patient on average is about $1,200. The lifetime value of one retained patient family can be 10K or greater. I always say this number goes up significantly if everyone in the family has a little bit of vanity. They all want veneers. But that's an average that we know today. And the cost to acquire a new patient is 5 to 8 times when it's a new patient versus retaining an existing one. So that number, which we knew about 3 years ago, was around $129, has now increased for that one new patient acquisition to over 350. So you talk about inflation, we're seeing it even in what it requires us to do to actually get a new patient. And I think we talked about this last time, but we're, getting a new patient that comes from a referral that didn't come through a marketing source is actually your very best patient, because they already know the quality of your care and someone has made that recommendation. So it's really a valuable shift that we're talking about. And when they experience that hospitality that's second to none, they tell all their friends. You think about Chick-fil-A when it first started and they told you our pleasure, and you drove up and you got a warm chicken sandwich. You were telling everybody and their brother about this great chicken sandwich. In fact, I went to the mall and had my first chicken sandwich as a kid at Chick-fil-A, and I will never forget like the level of customer service. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I've never had a chicken sandwich this great. Is it the best chicken sandwich out there? Maybe not, but combined with hospitality, it sure is. And so the 5 KPIs we're going to talk about really is a benchmark that I want you to look at are the new patient conversion, the no-show rate, same-day cancellation, same-day reappointment, and then really tracking that 3-step save rate. And you're going to hear me talk about that, but it means documenting what it means to actually save the visit. And right now, that last one I see all day long and hear all day long when I listen to calls, because the team member usually says something when the patient calls to cancel, like, oh, no problem, call us whenever you're ready. And
Oh, no.
And then we all know that does not work. and really, I mean, if we were to ask that question ourselves, are you ready for a dental appointment at any time? Like, do you wake up and think, I just cannot wait for my next dental appointment? So it's not likely they're going to be ready again if they cancel too. So just remembering the gatekeeper versus the guide, we talked about this on the last call, but it's a refresher before we go into the rest, It's really about answering the questions and ending the call when you're the gatekeeper. It's the checklist. You check it off, you're done, you get them off the phone, and you really didn't engage with the patient. The guide is answering questions and slowing down and earning the yes, and really owning the benefits of the conversation. And I think, just as an example, and it's beyond even the phone call, there was a patient that walked into a clinic I was in just this last week. And the gentleman that walked in wanted to schedule a new patient visit. And she said, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. We, go ahead and take a credit card before we schedule." And she was ready to go right onto the iPad and setting him up with that. And he took out his Disney pass card. He had a membership to Disney. And he
Yeah.
handed it to her and he said, "Do you think my Disney card would work instead?" He was kind of a playful older gentleman.
Yeah.
And the girl that I was training sitting next to me, she goes, "Oh no, we only take MasterCard, Visa, American." And then she went right back to the iPad. And I watched the face of this gentleman just drop. And I looked at him, and I was not supposed to really be engaging, but I looked at him and I said, "That is so fun. Tell me about Disney. When is the last time you
Yeah.
went, and why do you have a pass?" And he's like, "Well, we get them through my work, and I can go anytime I want with the kids." And he went into a little bit of this story. And I said, "Man, that sounds like so much fun. I bet you have made so many incredible memories." And he goes,
Mm.
We really have." I said, "Well, that is incredible. I love hearing that story." And so he walked out the door. He did schedule his visit at that clinic, but I leaned over and I talked to the girl sitting next to me and I said, "Did you hear the way that I talked to that patient?" And she said, "I did." I said, "Did you notice anything different?" And she said, her first statement was, "You weren't in a hurry." And I
Mm.
said, "Right." Over the years,
I
one of
like that.
the things I've learned the most is that the patient's perception is our reality, not the reality of the chairs in the back, not what's happening with the schedule. The reality is the perception that they hold of us and how well we connect with them. And really, that's where the crown standard lies, right? In the
Yeah.
relational connection that makes people see that they are valued and heard and seen. And we forget that. We negate that because the checklists have gotten too great, or we've deferred to the iPad. And even in some clinics right now, I hear the doctors excited to try out the check yourself in with the kiosk, and
No.
no one at the desk. And you know what? I don't mind a check-in if there is something of that nature. But one Sorry, I have a baby dog Bruno that has just
Oh,
decided
it's fine.
to bark in the background. He never
I'll
barks.
just I'll just edit
Okay,
it out.
great. Perfect.
Okay.
Let's resume. So
Okay.
anyways, all of that to say that engagement with the gentleman who wanted to share his Disney card was that he wanted to playfully have a conversation. He likely doesn't have a lot of people in his life that he connects with, and he came into the office hoping to have that point of connection, and it really is very valuable. So the mindset before you pick up the phone matters. And I even challenge team members to take a step back before they answer the call if they have been engaged in quickly changing a room or anything else, and just make things simplified and easy. So there's three questions behind every hello that we need to be thinking of, and really be kind of consciously aware of. And that is, do these people actually care about me or just about my appointment? That is the question they're thinking in their head before they ever even pick up the phone. Because in most instances, we are treated like a number. I can think of many times this last week where I was treated like a number. Will
Mm.
my time be respected on this call? Are they really listening intently to me and really about the reason why I need the visit? Are they hearing me? Many times I hear when I listen to calls where the patients repeated the same thing over and over again. Have you ever been on a call like that with a customer care representative and you're like, didn't I just give them my email? Didn't I just tell them the reason why I called? And now I'm telling them again and again.
Mhm.
And so really that is part of the respect, right? Is the listening. And then am I going to be judged, rushed, or pressured? I've
Ah,
recently heard on some calls where the patients need to be vulnerable and share that they haven't been in a very long time. And they've been met with, the lady at the desk who's like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 years. No, we don't need to tell the patient that they're standing in judgment because they haven't been in 3 years. We just need to be excited that they're present and ready to be cared for, and really
mm,
just asking the right questions so that they feel valued and seen. The 30-second Crown standard opening that I put together for you, that is part of
okay.
my course that I teach on, is stop the multitask. This is really hard because a
Hmm.
front desk team member, they're doing 20 things at once and they're picking up the phone and they're still doing the 20 things. Alternate who's answering the phone so that you can stop that multitask. Put it front and center, and the person on the call is your priority. I'll say it again. The person on your call is your priority, not any other task that you need to accomplish in the background. So that means take your hands off the keyboard when you answer the call before you gather any information, because we know that if you're quick to get ready to type, you're not even remembering their name. So immediately, the first thing that you're going to do is breathe and pause after you take your hands off the keyboard, reset your posture if you need to. And also, I believe that we should smile when we answer the phone. It changes the way we sound on the phone. And I will actually put on a sticky note at the desk when I go in big letters, smile. You do, after all, work in a dental office, because that smile is both seen from those that are coming in as well as felt by those that are on the phone with you. And then open with your name and warmth. I talked about this briefly on the last time we were together, but saying things like, hi, this is Cassie. How can I care for you? Changing the inflection of your voice to just be soft and welcoming can make all the difference. And then when they say their name, actually having a greeting that takes place. We don't do that enough. When we meet someone in public that's been introduced to us, we have a greeting that takes place on the call. Let's just say it's Joe that calls in and he's going to be a new patient. My feedback back to him immediately when he says his name is, well, Joe, thank you so much for calling us today. Let's talk through a little bit about what that new patient visit looks like. And also, I want you to know I'm here as an advocate for you to make sure that you get the right level of care. Immediately letting the patient know that you have not been hired by the office to be the gatekeeper. You have been
Mhm.
hired by the office to be the guide and literally the liaison between that person and the future of their mouth. It really does transform things. And I see team members recognize that it's not just about the doctor being happy with the outcome of the patient intake, which we hope for and we want, but that really you're representing the patient and hearing their needs and concerns fully so that you can communicate those things to the doctor and get the information and get it accurately and make sure that you are really onboarding the patient with excellence. It's a big
Mm.
deal, and it is the differentiator between why they book or why they don't. So the gold in the call framework that we talk about is really about these 5 steps, right? It's the greeting, the softness, it's the way we gather the information with excellence. And again, I say it's 5 or 6 key points. And then we let them know something more is coming to them. And it's important that they complete their paperwork, but we want them to know that additionally in that paperwork, we're going to ask some questions around the history of both your mouth and your family's mouths, because it's bigger for us than just your health history. We want to know what took place inside of your family history and family DNA with their mouths. And this is one of the greatest relational builders you will ever implement inside of your clinic, because now you're talking to that patient about their mouth. You're not coming and bringing them in and sitting them down and going, okay, tell me about your blood thinners. Tell me about the last time you were in the hospital. We need that information. But we're starting the conversation with, well, I saw in here that you had a lot of, family members that lost teeth and that you're really
Mm.
worried about removables. I want to talk through that with you. And I want to come up with a prevention plan with you so that we keep you whole and healthy for as long as possible. Let's talk about your goals. if you think about the outcome of a great, business engagement or even a consultant you've worked with, the very best ones will say, what do you hope to get out of this partnership? Right? Like right from the beginning, like what do you expect to receive? And I don't think we really say that enough in dental. We need to ask the patient, what do you hope for the outcome of this to be? What are you really hoping for? Do you
Yeah.
know that we offer whitening and straightening and we can do those things for you? Wonderful. Well, what are you hoping for your smile and for your health? Let them
Yeah.
through that. And in that empathy, it actually will lead them to the decision-making process in a very different way, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's different when we pull our car and they pop the hood and they tell us something is wrong and they come out and they give us the plan for what needs to be fixed, right? We know it has to be done so that the car keeps running. It's pretty matter of fact. We're not really emotionally attached to anything other than our money, unless it's a really great classic car. I had a few classics in my day. So, thinking about it from that perspective. But when it comes to dental, it's not just about popping the hood and giving the diagnosis. It's about understanding the quality of the person and what they're bringing to the table first in terms of what they really need, and then meeting them where they are. So we're going to guide them through that, and we're going to do a gold check that we'll talk about here in a moment, and then we're going to help them close with confidence. So it's really not just about one and done, check it off the list, bring them back, and that's enough. So the greeting, it's warm, it's branded, it's the first name in the first 3 seconds. You have to repeat it before you write it, is what I always say. And that really does help you retain it when you're at the desk. To say it with confidence back to them, using it in the sentence, then write it in and start their profile creation, because it keeps it human. And then the other piece of it is that the branding of the practice is shared. It's always important to mention the name of the practice. A lot of times I'm calling now and they're not even mentioning the clinic. And I have to actually say, I do like a process where I will grade the clinic on their involvement in customer care. And I go through the whole process of like a secret shopper. So what I'm seeing is they're not even engaging with me as to what kind of office I'm calling, who's there, what they offer in any of that first part of the conversation. It's just very stale, not even the name of the office. Your name has to be added, and also an invitation, not an interrogation. Again, that shift to not be an interrogator happens because we've slowed down. So thank you for calling. As I shared before, how can I care for you today? You're not going to say, can you please hold? If you are,
Do you have insurance?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Tell me who you have, because if you're not in network with them, you're hanging up right now. Yeah.
Sorry.
And
I'm
in
sorry,
fact,
Cassie.
most people that call, that is one of the very first things they want to know. They will
Yeah.
call and say, are you in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield? And immediately that is a moment to recover the conversation and say, you know what? While we aren't in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I can tell you that sometimes those out of pockets are very similar, not a drastic difference. And we would love to have you here as a patient because of the quality of the work that Dr. Smith does. Have you been able to go on our website and see any of the reviews from our patients or the work that Dr. Smith has done? And then you pause and you let them know that. And really we get the Betty Sue at the desk that, is so quick to respond with no, that's the end of the conversation. And in fact, I'll share with you a greeting via text, because there was a campaign that was done at a group of clinics, all funneling into kind of one call center, where the text went out to those that had been inactive or not in for some time. And then the goal was to say, we've missed caring for you. Well, Betty Sue at the desk was the one handling all of those texts. And the campaign was not very successful. And so I decided I would go in and just observe what was happening in the text communication. And sure enough, she created herself a lovely little template. And that template actually said, we do not accept text messages in this office. If you are interested in talking to us further, please call. And Betty Sue would put her number in the thing. And my favorite part of those texts was the very next comment from the patient was, well, why the heck did you text me if your office doesn't? I'm like, this turned into a fiasco. So as I share these tidbits of information, just make sure whoever is kind of gatekeeping the office now versus guiding is addressed, and that you are looking at the correspondence in the text, because you could shut down a campaign that's meant to grow your practice and make it successful. So that capture needs to happen in the first 15 seconds. May I have your name, please? Use it twice within the call. The name is one of the single most powerful pieces of the conversation, and we forget that. Open the purpose discovery. That means what brings you in today, or why have you called today? Tell me a little bit more. I always like to use the phrase, tell me a little bit more about why you called Smith Dental today, and let them share. They may have just found you on Google, but it may be a bigger story than that. And it's always good to know it so that you can know the expectations of the person. Empathy first, logistics second, and capture it in real time. Take notes during the call. Not after. Patients can hear you when you're not writing it down. They notice. And that's a big one, right? Remember what I said about repeating things over and over again? Patients take note. And patients take note when you don't respond, that you are listening and that you have that information. And I even love to have my teams take note. And then we do recognition of it in the connection code morning huddle. If something was mentioned in that call of scheduling, like, well, I've got to get this done because, my son is graduating next week. That is the gold. It goes into the actual patient profile. So whether they know it or not, you just were the detective that found out the information. And now when they come in for their visit, you say, you know what? How was it, with that graduation? Tell me about it. Was it great? And they're like, wait, you remembered? Some of the greatest people that I know that are, relationally just on point have remembered the little details of my life, not because they had to, but because they wanted to, and they care about the human being. I think I shared this on the last call, but remember I said my dad would say, if ever I forget that the person is not connected to the
teeth,
please let me know. To the rest of the rest of the body, let me know. This is the language transition that we're looking at. Just as that was shared in the last series, in this series, it's about talking to the patient, gathering the information, and then recognizing them for it. I guarantee you that the next time that patient that brought out his Disney card walks in, she's probably going to mention something about it because we made it a memorable moment. And that is a very key component to the patient coming back over and over again. And really, the dentists of the days gone by that grew their clinics are some of my most favorite people to talk to, because they really did pride themselves on relationships and what it meant to engage with the family and be a part of the community. And I think there's a resurgence of that happening right now before our eyes.
Me too.
And it's very exciting to me because the doctors are adding additional services that are beneficial to the patient. They're communicating better to the patient. They're realizing that all of the electronic aspects of patient care didn't gain them or garner them more patients. In fact, it actually created division where the patient didn't feel like that they were cared for and just a number. And there's just this beautiful resurgence happening around communication and the power to connect with people again. So just the guide piece of that and the gatekeeper language versus, the guide aspect of that is, I will check your benefits and walk you through it together. If they've handed you the card, we are responsible for communicating in a way that they understand their benefits. And we sometimes forget that altogether. When would you like to come in? I love the open statement of, we have Tuesdays and Thursdays open, and that usually is when our doctor sees new patients around 10 or 11. Would either of those times work for you? Going ahead and being proactive in that way, the patient shouldn't have to come up with answers to things because we're guiding them to that answer. I would love to verify that for you. Most plans cover this, but the only way to be sure is for me to check those benefits. And then let's get you on the schedule while I have you now so that visit can be scheduled and we can have you here on time and make sure that your visit goes as planned, kind of guiding them softly through the process. You are truly this partner with them in care. So the gold check that we do and this is the one that I said I think could be beside your computer, is when someone calls for anything, not just a new patient, it is an opportunity to make it a full circle moment that benefits the practice and benefits the patient. Most of the time, I have patients that will call in and go, am I still supposed to be there at 10 a.m. on Thursday? And the person at the desk who's doing 5 other things goes, yep, see you then, bye. And the call is over. It wasn't memorable. There was no moment. And really nothing else came out of that call. But what I love to do is I love to challenge the team to look at these things: the family, the balance, the unscheduled treatment, the reappointment, and even if there is a referral that has been made of any kind. So a holistic approach to looking at all elements of that patient journey and making sure that the patient is scheduled and that they have all of the elements right. Even if there's a balance due, just saying to them, you know what, I do show you're coming in at 10 tomorrow. I don't want you to have any surprises, but there is still that $20 that is due from the last time you were here. And making sure that you are just really, truly accommodating to that patient while helping them to see the value of it. The other thing is, when you do have a balance for the patient, changing the language of how you share that balance. So right now we send them the balance in a text and we say, you owe this. And what I want you to do is to send a text that says, great news, our office now has a convenient way for you to pay your bill online. If you'll click here, you may take care of your bill before your visit, and we look forward to caring for you. And now patients are like, oh, wow, great news. There's a way to do this where it's not awkward when I come into the office. Is it great news that you owe money? No. But in the reverse psychology of it, you've given them an easy way to do it, and it takes the pressure off of things, and it doesn't feel like you're, going after them to collect, but it's a much simpler approach. And then also just and it's different, right? It's a different mindset. We don't normally get texts that say great news when they're asking.
You owe us money. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does catch you off guard a little bit. And I really think that this is an important piece to look at, is how do we change our language and shift it so that they feel engaged? Also, when the visit is scheduled, recording a video with the doctor that says, we cannot wait to have you in our practice. Did you know I became a dentist because when I was a child, I had a really bad dental experience. And so I dedicated my life to making sure that everybody has a better experience. And that can be a huge piece of the win. We forget this and we get busy into the mundane, and we forget the fact that, there is so much more that could be done to make things more impactful. And I really, really believe that if we would pause and do a little bit more of it, it adds the personal touch to things. Right now, when you walk into restaurants, especially high-end restaurants, they've started instituting something where they give a card at the start of the visit. And the card details the server that they will have and why they're a server. I love it because it tells them about their life and their story, and it says, I have 2 baby girls at home and I come to work here and be a server because my hope is that I'm going to put both of them through college. See how the human touch changes the engagement? It also probably will shift the level of the tip that they provide now that they know that information. So closing with confidence in the call really is the most important piece of it. Repeating the booked appointment once more, letting them know that it was a pleasure to schedule that for you, telling them what happens next. We don't do that enough. We just say, okay, I've got you scheduled, and we hang up, saying to them, you know what, you're also going to receive a text from us. Be on the lookout for it, because if we don't have a confirmation of that time, because the doctor does have such a busy schedule, we won't get to have you come in. And by the way, our doc's schedule is so busy because he creates a customized care plan for every patient. See how that language tells them the value of the doctor and how the doctor has limited time, and oh, by the way, let's make sure we get that confirmed. Then the warm out is something that needs to be done, and it's never done properly. It's not just bye. It's not thank you for scheduling, click. It's, David, thank you so much for calling in today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me back. It was a pleasure to care for you. And now when I hang up the phone, you can be certain that there was an experience, a differentiator that was so much better than what they had in previous engagements with anyone else during their day, that it changes the entire dynamics of things. So start to finish, this is just a slide I'll quickly share, but that gold in the call means that we gather information the right way. We don't jump to the computer first, and we don't jump to the task list. We're all so quick to complete the task that we forget it every time. The 5-second slowdown is the next piece of it, Stu. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I need a 5-second slowdown. Sometimes in the dental offices, it feels a little bit like the NASCAR 500 or an Indy race because it's chaotic and there's changes happening. And really, there's so much that needs to be done. And I just want to challenge that in that slowdown, that there is this pause or invitation to engage differently. There is a dropping of the tone of our voice. There's an invitation that's being extended and a validation. And really the value of this from just a team perspective is when we all look at this together, everybody kind of becomes on board with supporting this and even protecting someone that's engaged with the patient. If we're talking about it front and center collectively as a team, that means I don't go and interrupt someone else on the team when they're talking to the patient, right? We protect it for each other. And so an example of this just this, couple weeks ago now was I went into a clinic and a lady walked in who had lost a temporary. And she was irate. Like it was a front tooth. She's like, you got to get this temporary back in. I'm here right now. And the team member at the front desk already knew that the doctor's schedule was completely booked, right? So the immediate response was, well, we don't have time right now, which only elevated the response of the patient further because there was no slowdown to hear anything. It was just an immediate, we don't have time for that. And what I challenge in the 5-second slowdown is just get up from the desk after you say this and pause for 5 seconds. But when someone comes in or they call and they are like, hey, I need an appointment right now, the 5 seconds means that they either get put on hold or you step away from the desk. And so what you say to the lady who's lost the temporary, you know what, if you don't mind to take a seat in the waiting room, I'm going to go check for you because I want to be an advocate for you to get that fixed today. I am so sorry that that's happened. Let me go check with the doctor and then I will come out and speak with you. Now, the doctor already told me he can't see anybody till 2:00. I already know what the schedule looks like, but I take 5 seconds. They've sat down in the lobby. She's not hot-headed because she's now sitting down. I wait, I breathe, then I go back out into the lobby and I kneel down and I say, Mrs. Smith, I just wanted to let you know, I spoke with the doctor. He's got a 2:00 slot. If we can get you in any sooner, I want you to know I'm on top of that. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you get cared for. And guess what?
Nice.
Mrs. Smith walks out and she's a happy camper. The person on the phone that was irate and needs a visit now knows you went and advocated for them, even if you already knew what the schedule was going to look like. And you let them know that you were an advocate for that. It's a critical component of what's next. So kind of in taking it full circle and finishing out, it's the 3-step save that I want to leave you with. Cancellations are not a rejection. And all day long, I'm seeing this happen over and over and over again. And I really want to challenge you with this because, at the end of the day, when the fallout happens in the schedule and we don't recover those visits, it's lost revenue to the clinic. So the 3-step save, it's pretty simple, but it's to validate, clarify, and redirect. We're going to talk about kind of this conversational standpoint of when they cancel, it is a like day and like time that we offer every time. There is no call us back when you're ready, but if I cancel at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, I'm immediately offering a 2 p.m. on another Tuesday. And if that doesn't work, then we'll pursue more options. But almost all of the times that I implement this with my team, the patient will accept another like day or like time. So it really is a valuable component in all of that. And the next piece of that is to clarify. And really what it means in that is to just make sure you understand why the patient is canceling and how you can help them with that. And really thinking about is this something that is an issue, or is there something else going on with the patient if they're not willing to reschedule? And working through that challenge together as a redirect with them and saying, tell me a little bit more. I love that statement, Stu, when you ask the question, tell me a little bit more. It works even with your teams. Just ask them to tell you a little bit more, and they'll divulge more about why they need to cancel. And then a redirect can happen. So maybe they heard something or saw something online. You can pause in that moment and go, you know what? Let me talk to you about a couple better options that are available. I know that you are concerned about seeing Dr. Smith because you feel like he might not be a right fit for you. We also have Dr. Susie that's here on Tuesdays. Everybody likes to choose a specific provider. She does work with a lot of our patients here that you mentioned you are interested in ortho, and she does a lot of that. Like, just kind of re-navigating the questions and concerns, not from a standpoint of letting them stay there, but giving them added options can be a very critical piece in just changing the patient experience and engagement. So that 3-step save is kind of the ending piece I wanted to land on, Stu, and just to say that for me, the greatest gift that we can give our clinics today, the greatest gift that we can give our offices today, is to become relational again. And it really, to drive it home, it means a return to something that's been lost in generations, that I believe when we return to it is what sets us apart, because it's a standout. And when you and I have incredible customer service, when we go somewhere and we experience someone who recognizes us or even mentions like, oh my goodness, I think you told me this the last time you were here, but aren't you going on a vacation with your family? That does something for us, because as relational beings, we need that human connection in order for us to make better decisions, and even to choose things like a treatment plan acceptance. It changes all of those dynamics, and many of those things change in the first 10 seconds or less when they engage with us on a phone call.
Cassie, you are the best. This is so fun. Thank you.
So fun. I love it.
Okay, we'll be back for part 3. So this is our part 2. I'll put all of these recordings on crowncounsel.com so you can watch them and rewatch them with your team. Thank you, Cassie.
Thank you so much. See you later.
All right, as mentioned, there will be a part 3 here of the Crown Counsel standard of care, our relationship-based dentistry. So fun. Thank you, Cassie. Grateful for you. In our next segment, our last segment, we meet with Scott Broadbent, and we just jump right into it. Scott starts talking about an interesting principle that everyone can contact Scott about. There'll be an opportunity at the end of his 15-minute presentation to talk to him about tax credits as a small business. So he's going to explain kind of how it works, who is eligible, and what to do next if you are interested in participating in tax credits as a business, as a dental practice. Scott and his team are very capable. We've worked with them in the past. You may have worked with them through us before, but Scott and his team are here to take care of you, answer any questions, and get you started down this awesome path. It is timely, though. As you'll hear from Scott, July 6th is a deadline that we're looking at. So that's why we kind of pushed it forward. So enjoy or listen and learn from Scott and his team.
So research and experimentation tax credits. One of the greatest things is if you're sitting here with Crown Counsel and you're watching this, is let's deal with the biggest myth that we see out there is, do I even qualify for this, right? I'm not being called by a manufacturer to experiment at my practice level on something they're going to release post, in the next couple of years. And so a lot of people myth out on, it's not cancer research, it's not new pharmaceutical development. And the answer is really simple. It just exists in a 4-part test the IRS asks for. And it's simply this: ask yourself this question: have you improved your patient outcomes in the last 3 to 5 years? And if your answer to that is yes, which it likely is, you haven't stagnated, you haven't regressed, you've actually stayed up with the times, you've looked at new qualifying activities without even knowing it, we are designed to come in behind you and tell that story. Yeah, they've been around forever. I mean, credits have been around since 1981. And with the PATH Act that kind of made them permanent, and then it got renewed again as permanent with some additional little perks here back in 2025. The credit's a really active thing that's wonderful. And you might be sitting there going, okay, Scott, this is great, but why is my accountant, if these have been around so long, not said, hey, knock,
Mm.
knock, knock, you should look at this? The answer is the CBO for the federal government actually wrote in 2019, hey, if you are a small business owner in the US, please take a look, visit with your accountant, and explore whether or not this is an option. We have seen that since 2022, there was a small change in how these were accounted for, which became slightly less advantageous for the tax owner. He had to pay a little more tax up front to get all of it back later. And I don't know about you, but I don't like giving the IRS my money up front and expecting them to give that back, because I always feel like they're not going to give that back.
Yes.
And so for 22, 23, and 24, there was some hesitation on our part, our clients' parts, where everybody kind of paused while Congress was kind of reestablishing where they are today. The nice thing about them today, they're permanent. They have parameters, and we're not expecting any major changes to have. So in the last 2 decades, there's only been 2 changes to them.
Okay.
So it's not very often that they get addressed or done. And most of those changes were, they thought that they could amortize and everybody would be happy. And then 3M, Amazon, all those guys wrote them letters and said, guys, this is a terrible idea. And they listened. But Congress takes a year or 2 to get stuff pushed through, especially correctly and re-amended. So that's kind of where the credit is. The 4-part test is worth talking about.
Okay.
So Stuart, in here, the permitted purpose comes back to that question we just talked about, right? Am I doing things that are improving my patient care? Right? What am I doing in my crown work? What am I doing inside of my endodontic side or my ortho side, or any variation of that you have in your practice? And what are those iterative modifiers or nuances that you're kind of looking at an uncertainty and saying, hey, we can improve here? That's really the question, is you ask yourself, hey, I know I have an uncertainty. Take a really simple one in the last few years, right? Zirconia versus Emax. Big debate, and a lot of people adjudicating which way they want to run that, right? Emax has always been given the thumbs up on the more aesthetic finish, right? But they always get a negative, or sometimes they get a negative on the tension strength versus, say, a zirconia. So when you're looking at the anterior teeth and trying to decide whether you're not going to do that, that uncertainty and how you're experimenting with this is what we document for you. And us coming in and telling your story, that's the favorite part, is we just tell your story. What's going on in your practice as it relates to what you're experimenting with, what you're trying to develop on, and what that looks like. So that's kind of the fun part. It then turns into a monetary side. So once that story's been told from the scientific perspective, now we're talking wages, supplies, and expenses. So that's what factors in. So if you're the dentist, you're the lead researcher, your assistant, and people that help you with those experimentation, we get to take a small allocation of their time. Take an allocation of your time, an allocation of their time, then the dental supply that was associated with that. And all of that becomes what we call a qualified research expense. And then the IRS gives you a portion of that expense as a credit. So if you're sitting on here and you're in the Southwest region of the United States, okay? And so maybe you're Arizona, California, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, anywhere in that region, most of these states have an additional credit. So if you're sitting, let's take Utah, for example. Let's say you're sitting on $30,000 of credit. That's pretty standard for $1 million practice. So if you're sitting at that $30,000, the state of Utah is going to come behind that and give you about another 24. And so looking at the opportunity that exists, it exists on a federal level That's usually where it sets the precedence. And then the states that are participating around the country, and we can check and see if your state is. But when we take a look at that, if you are, it's just an additional bonus that gets credited to you. And I think it's important, Stuart, to talk about deductions, right? We always know if you go and buy a truck and you get to depreciate, you take a big deduction every year, right? And if you're making a lot of money, everybody has an accountant on here that says, hey, go buy a truck. But what is a credit versus a deduction? Deduction lowers it, but a credit is a dollar for dollar paid into the system on your behalf dollar. So we want credits. Credits are way better than deductions, right? So a $30,000 credit means my tax bill is lowered by exactly $30,000. So it's a really fun way to look at it. The states have a lot of nuances and rules around how you take theirs. Give us a call and we'll visit with you and give you the rules in your state that and kind of how that is going to come into play. But the states do use essentially what we create on the federal level, and then they kind of go off of a variation of that. We have a 4-phase thing. So if you're like, okay, Scott, what am I talking scope wise, right? We do an intake and alignment feasibility. We want to check and see what you would qualify to create an estimate. We'll have you introduce us to your tax preparer. That's who we work with. We're not interested in doing your taxes. We are not giving tax advice. That's not really our thing, but we are in preparing this. So that's our intake and alignment. So that before you say yes and sign on the dotted line, you know what your credit is, your tax preparer is in the loop, and everybody's ready to move forward. We really do believe, we just have one rule. Don't do anything unless you're 100% comfortable. The credit is a very vanilla credit from the IRS's audit standpoint, because that's everybody goes, hey, if I'm visiting with my tax preparer, they're going to bring up audit, right? What's my risk? If I do this, do I now get audited? The answer is we have never seen it trigger an actual audit. In all the years we've been doing this, and we've been writing reports back as far as 2015, 2016. So this is not like our first rodeo. But if we're visiting with you, we're going to grab your tax preparer. We're going to address the audit risk, which we're usually just seeing. If you're familiar, you're probably not, but if it is, 6426 forms are what we're typically seeing, which is where the IRS, for the scope and size of what you're doing, from time to time, we'll see a verification of some numbers. I think they're usually we kind of take that as they're just looking for bad players, or the people that aren't doing the due diligence or substantiating, approaching this correctly and doing it the way you're really supposed to. So that's our intake. Once we're done with that, we jump right into our discovery team. These are dental professionals, medical professionals, because that's our niche, that are going to get with you on the phone, and we're going to dive in even deeper on the qualifying activities you have. We want to make sure that we have that 4-part test well documented, what you're doing in your practice, your highlight reel, and then 3, while they're doing that, our accounting or quantitative team is working directly with your tax preparer. We're gathering your general ledgers, we're gathering W-2s, some of that stuff that we're going to use to substantiate or prove that those numbers, where they came from. When we need certain documents to do that. They're not complicated. Your tax preparer is only going to take a handful of minutes to send those to us. But then we go to work, because we're going to peel those all apart. We're going to separate them out. We're going to get all your dental supplies by vendor separated, everything, so that when we come back together, we have what we call a business component map. And I want to show you what this kind of looks like, because I think it's important. So this is kind of what it looks like, and it's probably pretty small on the screen. I'll blow it up just a little bit so we can take a little closer look. But you can see we had one on crowns, bone grafting, a root canal optimization, a bunch of different things that we were looking at in this business component map. But that's what that number 2, phase 2 is. We're going to get with you and we're going to create one of these for you. So this is one of our general dentists that we did. And this was 7 different components, from implant optimization, the other things we talked about. It looks like they were doing a composite and bonding agent optimization. So we look at those. Here's kind of just a short list of a number of potential qualifying activities that we have done for other dental practices just in the last few months. So I'll leave that up there for a second. Root canals, implants, orthodontic stuff, sleep apnea. Everybody I'm sure sitting on here says, yes, we address these areas in some way. Then the real question is, okay, let's talk about that patient outcome and some of those uncertainties you're addressing, and we can put that together. So phase 2 with us is really getting into the weeds of that process. Phase 3 is our accounting team getting into the weeds on the number side. That all comes together in our final thing where we deliver it to you and to your accountant, make sure it gets filed. It's important if you're the dentist sitting on here, and you're going, well, how many hours of my time is that? I would tell you that it's probably somewhere between 2 to 4 hours of your time. So, and that's spread out over a couple of months. So we'll have a luncheon. We'll get with our discovery team, spend about an hour. We'll do a bunch of stuff. We'll get back with you because we need you to verify a few things, make sure that it's all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And that can take 1 to 2 hours. That's why I said 2 to 4. So it's not a huge time commitment, but it is. We are going to need to get in your head and draw out some of that information and then have you tell us some of the nuances, especially once we have the activities, that map, and we have the expenses. Sometimes getting A to match up with A and B to B, we'll know some of it, but we need you sometimes to clarify, right? Because if you're buying stuff from, say, Patterson Dental or Henry Schein, you can buy such a variety of dental supplies, right? So we don't always know if it's implant related, crown related. And so we need some direction on that. So that's where we kind of get in with you on that last kind of closing and bringing it together piece, if that makes sense. So yeah, we look forward to doing that with you. So that's our 4 phases, and then we're done. We're going to give it to your accountant. It's important. We bill you on each phase. And the 4th phase, which is the delivery, the ongoing support, it's been filed, you get your report, and we like to verify you got your money. We're one of the few companies that we like to ride that boat all the way into the dock with you. Yeah, we actually don't want you to take care of us until we've taken care of you. How's that for a fun way of just having somebody that really truly partners with you all the way through on this? So we like that. We think it's important. The last thing I'll share with you is just let me give you some of the current landscape of what's going on out there with the R&D. And I'm going to probably just jump through. I'm probably going to talk about this July 6th deadline. So if you're sitting on this call and you're going, hey, there's 2 reasons to get us in touch with us fairly quickly. You have a June 15th tax payment. That's your quarterly tax payment you're making. If you could get with us on the phone and we could work with your tax preparer, we could probably get you an estimate of where that credit would fall, and you might be able to keep some of that 2026 payment and monetize this immediately. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but feasibility wise is definitely possible. The IRS, we talked earlier how that 22, 23, 24 years, they had the accounting methodology where it wasn't really pro small business. When they fixed it, the IRS came out with a memo last fall and said, hey, anybody that wants to go and refile a 22, 23, 24 and amend their return and wants to put this R&D on there, will allow you to do that, and you can file it with the 280C option, which is only available for people filing timely or on time. So they essentially said, hey, we're going to let you go back to 22, file as if you're on time, and you get more net dollars. Now, what if happens on July 7th? Nothing. You can still file 22, 23, 24. But during this window, there is a little bit of preferential treatment. So if you had $100,000 in federal credits, it's worth probably about $14,000 or $15,000 more net in your hand. Is it still extremely valuable after on July 7th? 100%. Don't get me wrong on that. But there is this window, and we can get with your tax preparer, come up with a strategy of how you can take advantage of that and have that those couple extra dollars. So if you're saying, hey, is the timing of this important? Well, you have June up for 26, so that's important, and that's just around the corner. And then you have July, that if you are going to go down this road and you interview with us, taking advantage of that over those years, even if it's $7,000-8,000 a year. I mean, I don't know about you, but if you know you want to do it, you just are waiting, do it early. You give us the extra $24,000. We'll take it and donate it to some charity on your behalf. And then you can officialize and sign with us after July 7th.
Okay.
But
Good advice.
it makes a lot of sense to, hey, if you're catching us in time, take advantage of it. We have a good sized team. We can handle a lot of folks. We'd love to help you specifically and help you take advantage of this. This is kind of our QR code. I wanted to pull
Okay.
that up there and make
Yeah.
it big enough. Let's see. Oh, I kind of made it too big there. Let's go to that. But essentially, 15-minute intro call. Let us give you work with your tax preparer, what the July 6th, ask us a few of those questions. We want to just give you that lay of the land, 15 minutes of your time. You can do it as you're headed home from work. You can do it over your lunch hour for 15 minutes. It really is pretty quick, but we feel like we're organized enough, well enough that we can get you that technical answer, or at least the start of it in that short period of time so that you can explore taking this credit. So
Nice.
yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell,
Good.
especially for this deadline.
Good. Scott, when we do this little call, your little 15-minute intro call, are there one or two questions that always pop up that you can answer right now that everyone's like, hey, you got to tell me this. Anything that will be a
Yeah,
common question? Yeah.
I would tell you the number one question is, Scott, tell me what my accountant's going to say and what's my real audit risk here.
Hmm.
And I would tell you that the landscape is very friendly. We have, I think we're now up to around 1,000 reports, and we have had the IRS inquire on that 6426. But it's been really light. We've been accepted on all of it. So we see it as a very vanilla risk that is actually being encouraged. I shouldn't say encouraged. It's very, if you get the right organization that's going to help you organize this and you do it, we feel very confident that the landscape is pretty mild. And that's probably one of the biggest things that if I'm sitting there and I'm a dentist, the second one is how much is this going to cost me, Scott? And I would simply say, hey, listen, just send us an arm or a leg. Whatever you want. We've been donating to the University of Utah those for years. So,
Good.
so no, we are very reasonably based as far as what we're going to charge you. We look at your project based on how much time is going to be allocated to it.
Okay.
And then what resources we need to do to pay for that and our margin, and that's it. If we get you more credits than we think, which we hope we do, we don't raise our fee. There's no percentage of my stuff. We believe
Okay.
that we can look at your project and do that in accordance with it. What we have seen is that puts us about 20 to 25% underneath anybody we're seeing nationally. So we feel like, well, we're really organized and that our fee is very reasonable for what we create and what we do for you. So those, Stuart, great question, but probably two of the things that most people want to know is, hey, how much does this cost me? And what are my risks if I go down this road so I can weigh that
Okay.
out?
All right, QR code is right there on the screen. I'm going to share this also with the live stream so you can I'll create a link so you can just click right on it in our chat. But you are encouraged as Crown Council members. There's over 1,000 Crown Council doctors in the United States to reach out, even if it's just for the complimentary 15-minute call. Well worth it. I like Scott just driving home from work, man. Just do the call.
Yeah.
and find out just details and ask your questions to Scott and his team about what comes next. So, all right. Anything else, Scott, we didn't hit? I know we are going to have you back. I don't want to cut you off. We're going to have you back in I think it's July. We're going to do a little more
Yeah.
in-depth webinar. But anything else before we wrap up?
I would just tell you, hey, listen, let us tell your highlight reel. A lot of doctors and medical professionals spend their whole career with only their office knowing and some of their patients knowing how amazing they are. Let us come and tell your amazing story, and at the same time having the IRS reward you for it. I mean, we love that. The client is family to us. We try to treat you that way when you walk in. It's like you're our mom. If you call us on the weekend, I hate to say it, but I'll pick your phone call up. Because I'd call my mom back too, even if I have to just say, hey, listen, I got 2 minutes. What
I
do you
like
need?
that. I like that.
So, hey, come join our family. We'd love to have you be a part of our lives.
Cool. Thanks, Scott.
All right.
All right. Thanks for joining us for the live stream today. I know that we went just a few minutes over. We're grateful that you were with us. Next week, we're going to have a live webinar, expert-led webinar by Steve Anderson. We'll have registration information coming to you shortly. So join us next week, either on Wednesday or on Thursday. There'll be 2 opportunities to watch and learn with us next week on our webinar. Thanks, everybody.